Now, one of the most popular strategies when dealing with the hunters on floor 100 of Summit is basically to sit in the starting room. However, if you sit in that starting room, you've almost inevitably experienced the hunter rush, and there's almost nothing you can do. There's no cover in the back of the room, and you are pretty much doomed to fail. What I'm going to be showing you in this video, however, is that that's not always the case. At least it doesn't have to be. And this is why I think that this build, regardless of your skill level, is going to be one of the best ways that you will make it through the summit. Now, according to some of my most recent testing runs on the hunters on floor 100, heroic and legendary, the hunters themselves have roughly 32 million life. That consists of 24 million armor and 8 million health. But they also have 3 medkits that they can use to fully recover all their health and armor. Quickly breaking that down, what it roughly translates into is each bar that the hunter has, which they have 6, is roughly 4 million armor. But the key to understanding this part of the knowledge is that the hunters do not just medkit randomly. They have a rather precise limit on just the amount of damage that they will take before they actually try to use a medkit. This limit roughly correlates to about 2.5 bars of armor left. So if you drop roughly 3.5 bars of their armor, they will attempt to use a medkit. In terms of damage, this roughly translates into them losing 14 million armor. So if you drop 14 million of their armor, they will try to medkit. But what I want to focus on now is actually getting the most success on a hunter run. All right, because if you have a build that just can be successful, but it requires a very precise set of circumstances, obviously you're going to get frustrated. You're not going to want to sit there for like an hour or 2 hours attempting, over and over and over again to get through this. So I actually talked about the concept for this build in a video a few weeks ago. I talked about 3-piece system corruption. I talked about 3-piece Eclipse protocol. I talked about a high-end version, right? And I said at the end that the high-end version is probably going to be the trickiest to get just because it requires precise rolls in almost every way possible. But the key point is that it works, and it works extremely well. Even if you don't have the build fully completed or, fully maxed out. If you have some bad rolls that you're just kind of like, oh, that's the best piece I got, it'll still pretty much work for you as long as you have a couple main aspects of the build put together. Now, one of the keys of the build is obviously the shield. Now, this is obviously a pretty typical bulwark shield for somebody who's using it at tier 6. It has 13 million health to it. But unlike a traditional 6 armor core tank build, my Artificer is actually giving me a 72% skill repair every 10 seconds. However, once I start activating talents, I can actually get it over 90% skill repair. And if I had the build set up pretty much exactly as I wanted it to, I could have, over 90% skill repair with even more armor. Now, in my first weapon slot, I have an M1A, and that's basically just designed to reach out, longer distances more accurately than, like a pistol or a shotgun, obviously, and being able to just kind of tap at the hunters, being able to, hit any skills that they might have thrown in an awkward location a little bit better. That's pretty much the point of it. It doesn't really get much use unless they're just, really playing scared and the hunters just don't come near me, which isn't too often, but that's what I use it for. Now I do have the Scorpio as kind of my backup weapon. I don't really use it that much in this specific build, but I can't deny that there are times when it comes in really handy. If you are getting rushed and you have, no options, you can pull out the Scorpio, hopefully get a disorient on them, and be able to actually escape to cover. Now, if you haven't invested into improvised pieces, this is probably going to be the most annoying thing for you. All right, so I've got 3 improvised pieces: my gloves, my holster, and my knee pads. All of them are rolled with Armor Regen and Hazard Protection. And then I use that additional mod slot to put protection from elites there. Now, hopefully, you guys were active during the Christmas events and you ended up getting some good chill out masks. I really hope you farm for them because they can be extremely important. Now, if you don't have them, it's not the end of the world, but again, it really is a good piece for this type of build. Now, mine is rolled in skill tier, and it has hazard protection on it. Plus, I've also put on 2 protection from elite mods. Now, my backpack is alright, but it is kind of one of the chinks that I really want to improve on my build. Now, it is a yawl, so I do get 10% hazard protection. It does have a nice high armor roll, and it did come with hazard protection explosive resistance. The problem was it had a pretty terrible talent on it. And the choice was either roll off explosive resistance for Armor Regen or put on a good talent. I chose the talent because obviously 25% damage while I'm hiding behind the shield all the time seems like a much better way to spend my roll. Now, if I could get this perfectly rolled, yeah, I would want Armor Regen and Hazard Protection on it. And now I want to talk about chest pieces. Alright, you can pretty much see where this build is going. But there are some considerations with how you want to structure your chest piece. Alright, since this build is going into some skill tier, some armor, and some armor regen, and mostly hazard protection and protection from elites, right? There is some ways to improve it depending on what you think your build needs. If I put on a Douglas Harding, I can get more pistol damage. If I put on an Alps, I could end up getting more skill repair, which would just buff my Artificer Hive and give me more healing. I could also go with one of the Empress chest pieces, and that way I would actually get a stronger shield with the 10% skill health. Now, I've chosen to go with Bellstone just for that 1% armor regen. However, like I said, there were a few chinks in the armor here, some pieces that I didn't like, and this is the biggest culprit of them. I do not want perfectly efficient. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad talent or it's, just not usable, but the goal is for the shield to take the damage, not to constantly need a med kit. So I would much rather have something that is more beneficial for the build as it's being used. And in this way, I find that Kinetic Momentum would be a much stronger candidate for this build. Kinetic Momentum would allow me to drop a skill tier and invest more into armor. If I dropped a skill tier, my Artificer would go to 60%, but if I have, an additional 60% healing from Kinetic Momentum, then I'm going to be getting almost 96% skill repair on my shield anyway. That just kind of far outweighs a lot of the other rolls that I could put on there. I mean, that's nice, and having the extra armor is nice because that increases my armor regen, which again is nice. But there's also another option that is quite useful for this build too, and that is of course Unbreakable. Now I actually have a really good chest piece that is a yawl based chest piece that has Unbreakable, and all I'd have to do is roll hazard protection on the crit chance slot. But I really want to kind of keep this piece as it is. If I could actually find like the perfect backpack, yeah, I might go ahead and change it, but as of right now, I don't want to touch it. But Unbreakable would be really good because obviously if I have a good amount of armor, I get a bunch of armor in case it gets dropped. The hunters come behind me, or maybe they split up and I can't really block them or get away fast enough. Obviously Unbreakable kicking in and then giving me that time to escape is a very valuable thing to have. Now for the final piece that I want to talk about. I know a lot of people love using the Liberty pistol, especially in these bulwark builds. Obviously, it's a great pistol. I love the pistol. I love it on my bulwarks. But I'm not going for a Liberty pistol because I'm obviously using the Scorpio shotgun, which I think comes in a little bit more handy. Now I'm going for the card custom because it does give me that skill tier which increases my healing from the Artificer Hive. Not only am I getting the skill tier, which increases the Artificer, but I'm increasing that healing by 30% with Reformation. Now that's obviously very important because I want the shield to be up as much as I possibly can get it to be. Alright, if it falls, if it drops, then I'm extremely vulnerable. Now I do have some protection from elites, and I can hide and survive a little bit. It does put me in a risky situation, especially if I'm actually already confronted with two hunters shooting at me. Now on this current version of the build, without kinetic momentum or anything, or any additional skill tiers or any additional armor cores, anything like that, my Artificer is already healing for over 70% of my shield. When I activate Reformation with a headshot, I'm getting 30% of that 70%, which means that I'm roughly adding 21% more to my shield. So in total, that's, over 93% healing for my shield, which that comes in extremely handy. They can drop my shield almost to a sliver, and then I will be fully back, ready to go. Now, it's not saying that they can't drop the shield. Of course, you have to play smart, and you have to, know where your shield's health is at all times to be safe. But having the potential to quickly and fully repair it every time you're in an engagement, every 10 seconds, you repair that shield, that is much more important than doing a little bit extra damage, because the point of this build is not actually to blast through the hunters. The point of this build is not to look fancy and look, just like a beast, to impress YouTube. The point of this build is to outlast the hunters. You are going to drain through all 6 of those medkits if you are a solo player. You are going to drain through them. You are going to slowly kill the hunters until they have no more medkits left, and you can just pick them off one by one. Now, as a full overview of this current setup of the build I have, like I said, there are some things I want to improve, but I am sitting at about 1.3 million armor. I do have 60% protection from elites, and in addition to that, like almost 80 hazard protection. So I've got 78.2% hazard protection, which I can optimize to get the flat 80. But because I'm also using 2 disrupt resistance mods, I am able to basically get to the cap. Again, if I optimize a few of those hazard rolls, I could get to 100% disrupt resistance. However, because there is a soft cap of what is actually effective on the player, I don't need 100% disrupt resistance to actually be immune from it. It can't apply disrupt to me. It can't. So the hunters cannot disrupt my shield, even though I do not have 100%. Technically, I think the maximum that I would need is like 94 or 95%. I don't exactly remember. So I am over the amount that I need to actually be immune from disrupt. And of course, this prevents them from being able to tear down my shield with their little jammer pulse. Now, like I said, guys, this build is about surviving through the hunters. All right, you are going to live longer than they do. That's the point, right? You don't want to play stupid. You want to play safe. You want to back away when they get too close. If you get, trapped, this build does have enough tankiness to actually be able to run away and get into a better location, right? I hear it all the time about how the hunters, do their death run. They charge you. You can't do anything. Look, even if you get 2 hunters that follow you into that room, you can get away. And you can even take a couple axe attacks, while being able to survive and carry on the fight.